This is Women's Tech Radio,
a show on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network interviewing interesting women in technology, exploring their roles and how they're successful in technology careers. I'm Paige.
And I'm Angela.
Well, Angela, this week we have Sarah joining us, and she is a new coder out in Austin, and she talks us through her journey and just some really awesome stories just about how she got here and what she's been through, and it's a great interview.
It is. And before we get into it, I just want to mention that you can support Women's Tech Radio by going to patreon.com/today. That is a general bucket that supports the entire network, but more specifically, because you listen to Women's Tech Radio, you are supporting us as well. So go to patreon.com/today.
And we get into our interview today by asking Sarah what she's up to in technology today.
Essentially, right now, I'm a software developer. I live in Austin, Texas. I was a journalist and I worked in digital media for 10 years prior to making that transition, which I did with the help of a code bootcamp in Los Angeles called Sabio, which focuses particularly on women and minorities, trying to diversify the tech scene out there. So currently I've been working on UIs, utilizing Angular, Bootstrap, and C#.
How do you wrap the C# into that?
So essentially, we were building the UI out for this device, and the backend is being written in Java. So we're writing a dummy backend or whatever in C# just to be able to test the UI out. So
that makes sense. Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you've had kind of a fun journey. Did you start in Austin and end up back there? How did that all go around?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of a funny story just because I ended up moving between LA I ended up back and forth between LA and Texas so many times that I would literally be in Austin saying, "Hey, I'm going to LA." And everyone asked me, "Didn't you just move here?" And I'd be like, "Yes, but I'm going back." And then I'd be back in LA and everyone's like, "Hey, didn't you just move to Texas?"
Wow.
So my family's actually from a town here on the Texas border called Eagle Pass. And my dad went to grad school in LA at UCLA. And so ended up living in LA for part of my childhood. And then moved to San Antonio, finished high school out here. Went to school in California, worked in Texas, moved to California, moved back to Texas, moved to California, moved back to Texas. So it was really just kind of something that I think, you become a grown up and you say, hey, what kind of quality of life is for me? And personally, most of my family's in Texas, and the pace is just a little bit more my speed because being stuck in traffic in LA just wasn't as fun for me anymore. So Austin's great. I think sometimes it is a little bit of a small town for someone who's used to something bigger. But what I really like about Austin, what I really appreciate, particularly in the tech scene and a lot of the work I do with women who code, is that it's really easy to know people and get to know people and network with people. And you can literally meet a CEO somewhere, connect with them on LinkedIn, get coffee with them. It's really kind of a more intimate community, I think, than like a place where LA, where there's just, so first of all, it's just hard to meet people because you have to go across like this huge 60 square mile area just to get anywhere. And then you can't even just get there. You have to fight traffic. And once you get there, everyone is very much interested in, who are you? What can you do for me? Why would I want to talk to you?
It sounds a lot like Austin is very much like Portland.
Yeah.
This is a frequent comparison that is made.
Really?
Is it? Yeah. Yeah. It's why we share the slogan, keep it weird.
Yeah.
Keep it weird.
Paige is from Portland, so.
Oh, that's cool. My brother went to Reed. He's a graduate. So that's really the only time I've ever been to Portland, but so I can't really speak, but it was really nice when I was there. Just a little bit cold for my taste.
It is, the seasons are a bit, it gets cold. I would rather live like in the LA area mostly, but I detest cars and traffic for the most part.
Yeah.
Like if I can avoid using a car, I will opt for that every time.
I feel you, girl. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So what do you think is like, besides so you've kind of outlined why LA is not the scene that Austin is, but what do you think it is that makes Austin the scene it is? Because I've been to other small tech cities and they kind of, they don't like even in Portland, I would say you have to kind of work to get to meet a CEO. And we have a fair number of startups, the startup scene, because everybody's migrating north from Silicon Valley and they're winding up either in Portland or Seattle.
Okay.
But we have a pretty good scene. it's a couple of years old now, really, of kind of getting going, but like trying to network in that is still sort of difficult. Like, so what do you think makes the community in Austin tight?
So I think that, my father's a history professor, and so I frequently fall back on things like context and historic history to kind of think about things like that. So Austin has been traditionally a really small town in Texas. So most recently, I think Austin has experienced, probably the last decade in particular, a lot of growth compared to what it was historically. Austin was like the smallest city, major city in Texas. I mean, Dallas, Fort Worth were bigger. Houston was bigger. Even El Paso was bigger. San Antonio certainly was bigger. So Austin's growth has been really recent. And so I think that kind of like small town flavor, that small town culture is still very much kind of part and parcel of the community here. And I think that the kind of the way that it came about was that, again, Austin's a small town. So then people start moving here from other parts of Texas. And, it's still a small town. So people kind of adapt that culture. And then people start moving here from other parts of the country. And that's the culture. And so I think it's just kind of, I think that that's due mostly to the fact that historically Austin was a pretty small town and still is compared to a lot of the other major Texas metropolitan areas. And so that being said, I know I have a lot of, obviously I spent a good chunk of my life in California. I know there's crazy people in Texas, but people are really nice. There is a good part about Texas that, there really is like a genuine friendliness in the culture here, which you may not know if you don't get past like the crazy gun stuff. But and I think that's another part of it is it's just, people are nice here. And, to your point about the startups, kind of moving and relocating, I have heard on more than one occasion that, startup founders or, venture capitalists will say things like, well, Austin has like a really good, work-life balance if that's what you're into.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I
as
totally
though it
get
were a
that.
bad thing, right? To not be working all the time. And so, kind of to that point, there's just so many. So Austin's a really social, networky town. I mean, you can literally be drinking every night of the week here, meeting people if you wanted to do that. I've definitely had weeks where I do go to 2 or 3 events, and so yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that. I think Portland has some of that heritage, but it's been a little longer, and I think the influx is a little bit higher. The like the gentrification in Portland is starting to pick up pretty bad. I think we had like a 30% rent increase in the past year.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty unreal.
Yeah, house values are going up here in Seattle.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah, like a lot. It is literally like Silicon Valley is just spreading.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see. I like the history as well. So it'll be interesting to see the numbers come in the next couple of years of how things change and why.
Yeah, similar things are happening in Austin, and everyone kind of has different feelings about it. But you can't really stop demographic shifts, right? So you do.
Yeah, we just have to try to, I think, be conscious of them.
Absolutely.
We can't stop them, but we can do it intentionally.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So you started out in journalism?
Yes. So let's. I get that question sometimes when people hear about my background. But yeah, so I went to school and I actually thought I was going to go to law school. I took the LSAT and all that, and I was just thinking, hey, I'm going to do this journalism thing for a year before I apply to law school. Well, once came time to apply to law school, I thought, oh my God, I do not want to go to law school. So I ended up making a career out of journalism, and I loved it and I was really good at it, and I did it in 2 languages. And unfortunately, I came into journalism right at that turning point where the web was starting to overtake media in a really kind of forceful way. Like I've literally sat in meetings where people were saying, we actually have more hits on our website than we have subscribers, like,
Yeah.
so, and then if, the recession hit and, media companies. So, I mean, I tell people sometimes like I've been laid off like 3 times, and they look at me with these like, horror in their eyes. I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just working in the media. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality is, every quarter you got to have profits because it's a publicly traded company and the first ones to go.
Yeah.
So I worked in newspapers here in Texas. I worked in Brownsville, Austin, and San Antonio. So I actually lived here in Austin about 10 years ago, first time. And, and I loved it and was great at it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. And then I thought, okay, hey, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to change careers. And I started a master's in community counseling. Because through my work as a journalist, people are always telling me all their problems anyways, and I'm a really good listener. And I thought this will be really great because I'm bilingual. You need more bilingual health workers, right, in Texas. And then I got pulled into a startup, and I loved it. And so I started doing digital media. I worked in like an industry publication called Inside Facebook, kind of covering the Facebook platform right around the time that Facebook was really digging deep into monetization, rolling out the Pages product and things like that. So I have some pretty detailed memories, excruciatingly detailed memories about Facebook's development as a monetized platform. But and then I started this other startup. It was called News Taco, and it was like a digital English language publication for Latinos. And then I worked at another digital startup when I moved to LA called Me Too Network, and it was a YouTube network. I think now it's kind of more newfangled new media company. So kind of through all of that, I see it as kind of like a steady progression of, what media is essentially these days. Anybody can write, anybody can take pictures, anyone can do video. So media really is more about the medium, right? The medium is the message, right?
Yep.
And that medium is technology. And so my last position, I really kind of started to dig deep into some more technical things in YouTube's back end stuff. And I thought, hey, I can handle technical stuff. I learned all this stuff, and it's something I'd been wanting to do for a while. So I decided that I was just going to get a job, marketing job or content management, whatever I could get. And I was going to figure out how to learn to code. And so I'm doing this. I literally have these jobs I'm going to apply to. I'd moved back to Austin. I was kind of freelancing. And like I'm fixing to apply to these jobs like the next day. And my friend Liliana Monge from LA, who I met when I was working in LA, we were actually in a room. We were in a Girls in Tech LA event, and we were both like, where are the other Latinas? We kind of like made a beeline for each other because there were like literally only 4 of us there. So that's how I met her. And so she calls me up. She says, Sara, she's a co-founder of Sabio, this bootcamp that I mentioned. She says, Sara, we have a spot for you. And I'm just like, wow, this is like almost like fateful.
Yeah. Sometimes things just line up like that.
It's really lined up. So I kind of said, hey, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's literally knocking down my door. So I kind of dropped my plans to apply to these jobs. I started, code school, code academy, JavaScript, all this stuff. Response, what's Bootstrap? What's responsive design? C#, SQL. And so that's what I did. And then I went to Sabio last year, and then I moved back in December, and I had an excruciating job search. I tell people, don't look for a job in December and January, especially as a newbie. It was hard. I mean, I wrote a story about it on my, I have a platform for Latinos in technology and STEM. It's called Más Wired. And I had like 40 interviews between like phone calls with recruiters and phone calls online and in-person interviews and technical interviews over the phone and those kind of like shared development. I mean, I counted them, right? And it took me months. And I finally, when I did get a job offer, I got 2.
Thought, where
were you guys all these times? Why are you doing this to me? So since April, so it's been about going on 7 months, I've been working as a software developer, and it's a little bit overwhelming, I'd say, like journalism and writing and kind of digital media stuff. I just got so good at it that I could do it with my eyes closed. And certainly that's not something that you ever feel working in technology. So it's been an interesting adjustment, but But yeah, so that's kind of how I made that transition.
That is an awesome story.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
Thank
cool.
you.
Lots of moving.
Yeah, I definitely am just like, ugh. And I'm actually buying nice things now. So I'm only going to move once or
Oh.
twice more.
Sounds like you're staying.
Yeah, that's when you know you've settled. I'm still not doing that.
Yeah.
No.
Keeping the boxes broken down in the garage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm nomadic, so it works
Oh,
that
yeah.
way.
I had my nomadic years.
I don't think I'll give them up. My dad said to me one time, he's like, Paige, I'm pretty sure there's not gypsy blood in the family. I'm like, Dad, I think you're wrong. But
So funny.
I have so many questions out of your story. I guess the first one is, you feel like being at a boot camp that was focused on diversity made a difference in the way that you learned, or how you networked afterwards, or the support that you got afterward, like any of that stuff?
Sure. So I can't really speak because I've never been to any other boot camps. That being said, I have been around other boot camps, here in Austin, certainly. And I've heard things I have friends who've gone through, Maker Square, General Assembly, or, whatever other ones, right? We have some Austin Code School or Austin Code Club or something. So I would say, I think for me personally, and journalism is also a very male dominated profession. So I wasn't so freaked out around being around men, but I went to Stanford as an undergrad, and I just remember being very put off by those tech people. And so I was scared about that. And so I think for me, going to Sabio was really kind of much more warm and inviting, and made me feel like technology was for me. And so that made a huge difference. I think, there were other women there, there were other Latinos there, there was African Americans there. It was just it was just kind of an environment that I felt comfortable in while learning this, difficult material, right, in a very stressful environment. So I think as far as the recruiting goes, LA's tech market, I think my job search would have gone a lot easier had I been in LA, because it's just a bigger market. I think part of the trouble that I had in Austin finding a job, or why it took me so much longer than it should have, is it's just a smaller market. And, people here, or the companies here, seem to really be waiting for those unicorns to come along, I saw a meme the other day. It's like, we're looking for someone in their 20s with 30 years experience.
Oh, yes. I've seen that one before.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so,
Entry level, 7 years experience.
exactly. Right. And that's kind of what I kept running into, is we want a junior developer for this position who is really, 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 really good. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, So one thing that I do appreciate about Sabio, and this is my experience, is that they're very focused on creating a community and a network. I think because of those types of students that they're focusing on, they understand that, hey, you probably don't have a network in tech.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you would have a network in tech and you wouldn't need to come to a code school. So there's a really kind of active alumni networks that I go to all the time. Hey, what about this? Anybody know about this? Hey, and is this normal? What should I be asking? What should I do? And for me, that's probably been one of the best things about my Sabio experience. What
tool do you guys use to do that?
We had previously used Yammer, and now we're on Slack.
Seems like everybody is on Slack doing this these days. It's a great tool for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and then if you're in LA, they have professional development seminars, they have recruiting events. I mean, it's just really great, I think, if you're in LA and you're going to work in LA, to have this kind of tangible and virtual community. That being said, my mother still lives in LA, so I'm going down there for Thanksgiving, and there's going to be a Sabio happy hour, and I'm going to get to visit with everybody. And so, I think that's amazing. A year after I haven't seen these people, we're going to get together and have drinks, and it'll be fun. So
that is awesome.
Yeah. How big was your class?
So we had 8 folks. It was 8 of us.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a good size.
Yeah.
So how did you feel like your journalism skills, did you find a way to kind of translate them? I think being bilingual should have given you some, there is some similarity between learning a foreign language and learning to code, because you are essentially just learning to talk to a computer. Do you feel like that influenced your learning process, or did being a journalist who's used to kind of seeking out answers to questions, do you think that influenced it for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that one of the first, I think that anything that you have to learn changes you to a certain extent. And I would say probably one of the ways that journalism changed me the most was just really not having any feelings about asking questions. Which is makes for some little awkward situations sometimes because they end up like interrogating people about their personal lives without really meaning to,
Mm-hmm.
but just because I'm curious. But I think that served me really, really well in software is, well, okay, so you want this data on the front end. Why what is it going to do once it gets there? How is this going to be used? Is this anywhere else? Like just kind of really drilling down deep into um, you know, questions so that I can fully understand the task at hand. That has been really helpful. And I think my metaphor for writing code or creating an application. And certainly I'm not as proficient as I would like to be at this point, but kind of my goal is so for me, because I've been writing for so long as a profession, as a science almost, it's very formulaic at the end of the day. I know a lot of people struggle with writing, but once you've written like thousands of things, it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. It's very formulaic, just like a function, right?
Yep.
Just like anything you're going to write in software, it's like, hey, here's the beginning, here's a few details about the thing, here's how they all tie together, the end. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty formulaic for me. I could write anything in a variety of ways, but at its core, that's what you're doing. And so, you know, that being said, there's a verbose way to do that, and there's a succinct way to do that, and there's a romantic way to do that, and there's a funny way to do that. And that's kind of how I look at software development is like you can write the same thing multiple ways, right? So I kind of look at being a software developer and my development as a software developer as looking at it like being a writer. Like I want to be uh, an efficient, interesting, but very pointed writer, right? Nobody wants to waste words, especially in the digital age when if it's not 140 characters, who cares? I think code is kind of the same thing. Yeah, you can have nobody reads the source code of Angular. I mean, it's just too long and it's too crazy, but people will love a code snippet, right? So, how do you ingest all of this stuff and output the most elegant, quick, easy to understand solution? And so, that's, I think, kind of to kind of address your question. I see software development as, I see writing as a metaphor for software development in that it's very painful to learn how to do it well, but once you get there, it's totally worth it.
I really like that idea. That's really cool. Like the idea of your code having your voice behind it.
Yeah.
I think that I've definitely noticed that. I think I can usually tell who on a team has written something by the way it's written.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unless you have like super strong style guides someplace too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But especially in some of the more relaxed languages like JavaScript or Ruby or Python.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense actually. Now you say that, I can tell too.
Yeah.
Huh. That's
Yeah,
cool.
if you like the idea of like software having a voice and being really readable, Ruby is a fantastic language for that. It's actually one of kind of like the core foundations of the community. Like they've actually kind of over the years shifted to the idea that even comments shouldn't be necessary. Like your code should be human readable enough
Yeah.
that you shouldn't need comments, which I really like that idea.
Yeah, I like that too.
So you mentioned that you had 40 job applications. So I have two questions in that. How
Mhm.
long did that take in a town like Austin? And what did you do while you were doing those to kind of keep yourself sharp? Or, maybe you had to have a job or whatever. And if you had to have a job, like how did you find the time? Kind of like I have a lot of, in my Women Who Code Next work, we have a lot of bootcamp graduates who are really struggling with that process.
Sure. So I totally lucked out in the sense that um, I was able to, I've always kind of tried to have a side gig going just to be able to save up money. And so by the time I moved out to Austin, I was freelancing and I wasn't making a whole bunch of money, but I was like sustaining myself. And so I had all this savings, all this money that I had saved up. So I was able to go to the boot camp and work one contract. So it was actually, I was just telling my colleague over lunch, I am way too old to go to boot camp ever again. It was a great experience. I don't ever want to do that again. I was like,
What is too old? What makes you too old?
I just mean that, I was going to boot camp 10 to 12 hours a day, and then I
Oh,
was going home and
I see.
I was
Yes.
working 1 to 2 hours, and then I was trying to make my lunch,
Yeah, like
and it
sleep
was
and eat.
just so tired. It was just so exhausting, and I was stretched so thin. And when you're in 24, 25, you can do that because
Yeah.
and I'm not. So it was just so intense and so hard. And so
I'm gonna ask
by the
that personal question. How old are you?
yes. Oh, I'm 32.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a kind of when it changes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I say I'm an old lady. Everyone's like, "You're not an old lady, Sada." And I'm like, "I know, but I'm compared to you, I'm an old lady." I'm like, "I'm not 24."
Yeah.
In
Um,
tech, we feel old.
Yeah.
yeah, seriously. So, that was kind of my thing was I was able to kind of do that. And so the uh the 4 month it took me 4 months. I think I came back in December, like a few days before Christmas, and I was still grumpy, so it kind of ruined Christmas, but I forgive myself. But yeah, so I came back December 19th, and I found a job the third week in April, almost towards the end of April. I started on April 27th. So it took a while. And I think that part of it is, I think I mentioned earlier, in Austin, for whatever reason, all these startups think that they're going to get senior devs. They're all, I mean, it's a limited pool. Again, Austin is like maybe what, 1 million people. I don't know what the population of Austin is, but it's not huge. It's not 6 million like LA, or 8 million like New York or whatever. Yeah, Austin's less than 1 million people. So, but they keep thinking that they're gonna, everyone's holding out for that senior dev. And so I've seen job postings, like I applied, check this out. I saw a job that I applied to earlier this year when I was looking, and they're still looking for this person. So it's going on a year that they've been looking for this person. And you just kind of have to ask yourself, maybe you're not going to find that person, dude.
Yeah. It's a unicorn. Like
Mhm.
pretty much. You have to redefine it or something.
Exactly. Something's got to give.
Yep.
So, it was really difficult. So, just to kind of address your issue. So yeah, I had savings, and I was working different contracts and stuff. So I wasn't making money, but at a certain point I wasn't like losing a whole bunch of money. That being said, the balance still was going down instead of up. And so
Sure.
I got, I mean, I told them this story. Like I literally got to the point where I said, okay, well, I can't find a software job. I've tried, you know, I tried my best. It's not going to happen for me, but I'm not going to give up. I need to get a day job, and I'm going to support my software habit, and I'm going to see how I'm going to still do this. And so I literally just, again, like I didn't give up like in a really sad, dramatic way, but I had just, practically speaking said, hey, I need income. So I started applying to these like content marketing, digital marketing jobs, and like, girl, like wildfire, people be calling me back, people were like dying to hire me because I'm so good at that stuff. And I have like, 10 years experience doing that
You're a
type of work.
unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. I am the unicorn. So, I was literally the day I got my first job offer, I was going to have, job interviews for these content jobs. And then I had to cancel them because I got the offers. And so that was kind of where I was at. I thought, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not going to give up on this dream, but I have to be realistic about these parameters. And so there's that. Like I said, I was getting a little bit nervous about the balance of my savings. So, and then I think as far as like the emotional stuff, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I gained weight during the boot camp because I was working out regularly, and I just had to sit there for like, you know, 14, 15 hours a day. I was just sitting.
Yep.
I mean, the best I could do was go for a walk around the block. And so I gained weight, and I was like, great. So like I've gained weight. I don't have a job. Nobody hires me.
Your
Nobody
savings
likes
is going
me.
down.
My savings is going down. It was depressing. It sucked.
Yeah.
And that's, I think what I was telling my friends recently, I've gotten to that point in my life where I know myself, as a well-rounded person, all like the good and the bad things. And I said, one thing that I really like about myself, and I don't think that this is because I'm an extraordinary person, it's just the way that I am, is I bounce back. Sometimes it takes me a few years after, whatever, the ups and downs of life, but I always bounce back eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I kind of knew that even when I was having bad days, and like, Sada, you're going to get there. You always do. And so, and I think the other thing is, I have worked in environments that were, I guess, what you would call like sexist. And, I just was just like, I am not going to let these bastards get me down.
Right on. Yeah.
Like,
That's the attitude
hell
you've got to have
no.
about anything, really. Yeah.
So that was another thing. So yeah, and then that's actually kind of where the Women Who Code came into the picture, as I was, sitting at home, feeling all like, oh, nobody likes me, I'll never be a software developer, all feeling sorry for myself and pathetic. And I thought, you know what, Sara, you need to get out of this house and you need to go talk to some other human beings, because I was working from home. I said, you need to go out and you need to meet people, because you can't keep hanging out with yourself only. And you're
Hanging
not
out with
allowed.
yourself. Yeah.
So I went to my first Women Who Code event. It was a tech talk, and it was okay. I wasn't like super impressed by it. But then I went to another one, and that's when I met some cool people. I heard some great stories. I met Holly, the founder of Women Who Code Austin, and Trisha, the other co-director of Women Who Code Austin. And I felt good being there, because I thought, hey, other people had struggles. I'm struggling. It's not me. I talked to Holly. I said, hey, this is great. I would love to be involved. Like, I mean, just off the top of my head, I don't know how else can help, but I can tweet. I do digital marketing. Like, I can help you with that. Like, can I help you with that? She's like, great. So that same day, that same night, I hopped on the Women Who Code Austin Twitter, and I started live tweeting the lightning talks. And, after that, I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. Like, I'd love, any help you can give me. Also, let me know how I can help. And that was in February. And so, kind of what happened from there was I really kind of started focusing on the Twitter account, and really kind of stepped up the Women Who Code messaging, Women Who Code Austin messaging on Twitter. And really cool stuff started happening. We started getting more sponsors. We started getting more members in the Women Who Code meetup. We started being able to have panels. We had a panel about women in technology. Like, it's been really great. And then I had this idea. I said, hey, we have all of these women who are coming who want to work in technology, but they don't have a portfolio. We should have like a portfolio hackathon. And we should say, we're going to focus on women, and we're going to focus on diversity, because nobody else in this town is focusing on diversity. And we're the ones. We are going to be the change that we seek, right? So it was a great idea. And then randomly started having conversations with some of the ladies that work over at Capital Factory, which is an accelerator here in town. And they said, hey, we would love to host you for your hackathon, and we can find you a happy hour, sponsor. And I said, sure, great. Let me know the dates. They're like, in 3 weeks. We had a quick powwow with the Women Who Code ladies, and we said, you guys want to do this in 3 weeks? So we did. In 3 weeks, we all we got sponsorship monies, we got the messaging out, we had people like help us invite their members, and we had what, some person said at their happy hour, it was like the most diverse group of tech people they'd ever seen in Austin. And we had like 90 people show up to participate in the hackathon. We had a Ruby workshop, we had an IBM Bluemix workshop. I mean, I think next year we definitely want to try to have more workshops for beginners. But it was just such a cool event. I showed up Saturday morning because Friday night we had the happy hour. So I was all stressed out and tired, and we got on TV, was interviewed by the local ABC affiliate, which was super cool.
Oh, that's super cool.
And so by the time I got home, I was just like wiped out. So I wake up Saturday morning at like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? But I get to the Capital Factory, and I'm just, barely awake. And I look and I'm like, what are all these people doing here? I was really shocked that so many people showed up that early on a Saturday, and it was great. And so after that, Holly spoke to the Women Who Code organization, and Trisha and myself became co-directors of Women Who Code Austin. And so it's just been, that's something that I would say to folks who are kind of looking for that next job, looking, trying to get their break, catch their break. Go to a Women Who Code event, start your own event. I mean, I've been so impressed, and I'm not like a super like new agey person or anything, but we have a nice little group, the Women Who Code organizers and co-directors and volunteers. And in the last few months, two of them have gotten new jobs making a bunch of money. And they've been helping the rest of us, like, find jobs, get bigger paychecks. I mean, it's just that when we're all together, we're so much more powerful than we are when we're like on our own. And so,
Yeah, that's exactly the point.
yeah. And I'm a true believer. I'm not saying this because, I'm like, oh, girl power, just for the sense of saying it. But,
It's not even just girl power. It's any group that comes together with a purpose, with common experience. That's where you find power. That's why the majority has power, because they're already together with a common experience. We can do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's been a really powerful, it's been a really powerful moment in my life to be, we call it, what is it, ladies coding brunch on Sundays, and we get together. We do a lot of Women Who Code stuff gets done over brunch on Sundays, but hey, I'm working on this project. Does anybody know Angular? Da da da. Hey, I'm working on this job application. Can you look at my resume? Okay, let's go over your LinkedIn profile. Like, it's just tremendous. We can pool all of our resources together, so we have this big pile of resources, as opposed to each one of us out there trying to make it happen. And so I have to say, like, I wasn't feeling so good about myself. I didn't have a job, money was going out. I was like overweight. I was just like, woe is me. I'm so sad. And then I got these job offers, and, it was just the Women Who Code kind of community or whatever really kind of helped me. It was something I could lean on before, while I got to where I wanted to go. So, and Holly started Women Who Code Austin when she was in a boot camp, when she was here in Maker Square. I mean, she had moved from LA, didn't know anybody in Austin. She had some health issues, and she said, hey, you know what? I need a community. So she started one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would say. If you don't have a Women Who Codes, check out other meetups. I started a JavaScript study group just amongst the people that I know, because we're all trying to better our skills, for example, right? So create a community. Like, don't do it by yourself, because that sucks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Women's Tech Radio. Remember, you can check out the show notes, which includes a full transcription, over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Just click on Women's Tech Radio and scroll down.
You can also hit us up on Twitter at HeyWTR, or send us an email at WTR@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Thanks so much.